MGM for 4 inch. Daxton, last name B-R-O-W-N. I found this account yesterday while searching around on YouTube. Now, they have about 10 or 12 videos, and I'm playing one here. Someone was able to find their Twitter account, which you can see here, and they haven't posted anything on Twitter since 2013. I did a quick search. I'm not sure that's their real name. They could be posting under a different name. It's possible that Daxton Brown is a name for a bad actor. I haven't done enough search yet on Daxton Brown to be sure that's not a bad actor. However, everything that I've seen so far fully resonates with stuff that I know is publicly available. It's just that I've never seen anyone pull all of this stuff together. Now, Daxton Brown, their focus is definitely corruption with Harry Reid and around Harry Reid. For those who aren't familiar, Harry Reid, he died a couple years ago. He was a very long time senator. You know, we only have 100 senators, 2 from each state in the United States of America, from the state of Nevada. I don't believe he grew up in a family that was necessarily incredibly wealthy or connected. So, however he got his rise to power, I don't think we need to resolve all of those details right now. But what matters is the connections that he had while in Nevada. Nevada is the home of Las Vegas and Reno. For whatever reason, state laws, state constitution has facilitated a lot of gaming activity, a lot of gambling, and various entertainment industries, drinking, prostitution, etc. in Nevada. And I think that this has lent its Nevada as being a wonderful place to launder money. I think a lot of money which has been used to support Democrat candidates in particular has come out of Nevada. Some of the videos which are being shown here talk a lot about Menendez and various other Democrats around the nation who were funded with money which came out of Harry Reid. Now, Harry Reid, as a senator from the state of Nevada, for several years was the Senate Majority Leader, meaning the political party that has the most seats in the Senate is considered to be the Senate Majority. It's a step down from being the House of Representatives leader, which is Nancy Pelosi, has been for many years, or at least while the Democrats are in charge. She's sort of like the peer of Harry Reid in the United States Congress. And there have been at times where they have been the majority leader and sometimes the minority leader. Either way, they've both been in charge of their respective parties. Most people don't like to talk about this about Nancy Pelosi, but when she is stepping down, most likely her seat is going to be filled by an Indian, which is fantastic. America's supposed to be about a country of opportunity and diversity, but we have a problem when almost all of the opportunities seem to be going to one nation, And we see that that nation has people in charge, nationals such as Jayanta Bhattacharya of the National Institutes of Health, who are knowingly using deaths from opioids, products which many times come from India, to suggest we either had a deadly novel virus or a chronic illness problem. We have people from a nation which provides opioids, manufactures them, that comes to the United States, running our National Institutes of Health, then denying that that's happening, and then even using that data to facilitate other operations worldwide. Jonathan Cooey of Giggle and Biological today said something that was very poignant. During the pandemic, Americans were murdered to create the deadly novel virus narrative. Americans were murdered. More Americans were murdered with opioids and supplemental oxygen to create ARDS, leading to the rest of the hospital protocols, than any other nation. More Americans were murdered, I believe, in COVID than Vietnam, World War I, and World War II combined. Americans were murdered. This is the largest crime ever committed against the United States of America, and I am now stating openly and bluntly that it was a combination of forces related to the United Nations, the old British East India Company, whatever it is, and the nation of India that was responsible for mass murder of Americans. They are using Jeffrey Epstein and the Jeffrey Epstein operation to deflect from this and to suggest that it was Israel, Jews, and then the hoax sham, which is known as Zionism. I've known Jews who've moved to Israel because they just wanted to be around other Jews and they liked the weather. Had nothing to do with some Zionist plot. And I challenge you, anyone, to send me a list of 1,000 people that wake up every morning and focus their whole day and all of their thoughts on some stupid bullshit narrative that all of the people of a particular religion need to wander back into the desert and reclaim their homeland. That's bullshit. Zionism is a bullshit hoax, which is some loose bullshit misinterpretation narrative of something that was laid down 100, 200 plus years ago. And it is a totally irrelevant hoax bullshit sham of a story, which is being promoted right now by podcasters who mostly get their money from India. This isn't a joke anymore. Mass murder of Americans. Mass murder of Americans. Did you know that when many doctors and nurses had to step down early in the pandemic, that there were legions of doctors that came in temporarily into the United States of America from India and were willing to participate in protocols which murdered people? There were armies of people who could barely speak English coming to U.S. hospitals to shove supplemental oxygen into people's faces, leading them to ARDS and then eventually a death. Americans were murdered during the pandemic, murdered. And I believe India is a big role behind it, which is why I keep reminding people that the Epstein hoax, the Epstein deflection, and look at Jews in Israel and say Zionism every fifth word seems to be coming out of a movement spearheaded by Ro Khanna, who was by the skin on his teeth born in America and whose family dates back to revolution and journalism in India. This is an Indian operation which has very, very deep roots going back many decades. It obviously includes 9/11. Obviously includes 9/11 because all the blame was put on Pakistan. Pakistan, one of the two main long-time, well, at least ever since the borders were redrawn, of India. It makes all the sense in the world. And then when you hear about Shashi Tharoor at the right-hand side of Kofi Annan, the Ghanan United Nations president in 2001 at the time of 9/11, and Klaus Schwab were getting out of a cab together and looked up and saw one of the planes fly into the towers. You can't make this stuff up. It is an India operation. And if it sounds racist, please consider the fact that I'm not the one that created all of this nonsense and all this noise. That little teeny tiny itsy bitsy nation of Israel, which is smaller than the state of Massachusetts, somehow controls the world through sex compromise. that is a fantasy that came out of the same nation which dreamt up the Kama Sutra. Anyways, this all wonderfully ties into Nevada. Pelosi, of course, DNC money, and she bows down to India. Harry Reid's main global strategist was Richard Verma, barely born in the United States. Verma went on to become, ambassador to India for the United States of America. He was a deputy director of the State Department for Hillary Clinton. He was side by side with Uma Abedin that no one likes to talk about. He's been part of working with the DSCA with respect to weapon procurement and sales to India for the United States of America. He was appointed by Biden to head economic recovery for Ukraine. Meaning, when you see Democrats flood the United States Congress with a massive oversized Ukrainian flag, and you what is going on here? That is a propaganda campaign to get Americans divided over, do you support Ukraine or do you support Israel? By the way, Ukraine and Israel are two of the top allies of India. India wins either way. So India wins when Democrats give money to Ukraine. India wins when Republicans give money to Israel. It's so easy to see. And they pay podcasters to never mention India. They pay podcasters to never, ever mention India. It's all about keeping the heat off India while more and more seats, congressional seats, National Institutes of Health, vaccine or CBER were under the FDA, and the FBI and one agency after another are given leadership responsibilities given to Indian nationals. And Americans can't see it because they're so whipped up about Israel. And it gets even deeper than that, because if the Democrat Party and the Democrat machine is getting all of its money laundered through Las Vegas and Nevada and Reno and everywhere else, well, where are the Republicans going to get their money? How are they ever going to compete? And that is why I found it fascinating that one of the traders that came into our circle, who I believe came into our circle because of Richard Verma, encouraged us to focus on Republicans having money laundered through Macau, China, which is terrible. But now I can understand. You know why? Because China is under severe threat from India. So China probably is more of the money right now behind supporting Republicans for the sake of their own defense than any other nation. And what you see right now as it being about Israel is it's fake. It's really, really fascinating. And I think this goes back to 9/11. It's probably why the Chinese were encouraged to buy all the steel from the Twin Towers after they collapsed. I know I just threw a lot of stuff out there at you, but the pieces now fall into place. You don't think that China is feeling the sting of Henry Kissinger working with their government to encourage a one-child policy for, several decades? China is demographically screwed in the future. And they know darn well that it was Kissinger and other people. Why didn't Kissinger go to India and tell them to have one child? You know why? Because Kissinger knew that India would be aligned with the British crown and China wouldn't be. And as an American right now, I don't see Chinese people by the dozens taking congressional seats, Senate seats, or running the National Institutes of Health. I do not see people from China who are realistically tied to this British Crown, East India crap running the United States government. I just don't. I do see them, though, from India in legions right now, and there's more coming. So why did Charlie Kirk get shot? Well, it's kind of funny that his whole life seemed to go downhill when he took a position that the U.S. should refrain from being involved in the India-Pakistan conflict. Something that, I'm going to rape you with the receipts, Candace Owens will never say. And that she used the same strategy that many other podcasters use. They just provide evidence and evidence and evidence and evidence and more evidence. The moment you think of asking a question, they tell you the STFU. and then they bend you over and they shove more evidence up the backside. They turn you around. They shove more evidence into your eyeballs. They shove so much evidence that you can't think straight. And then they say, follow the money. Follow the money. Here's the receipts. Look at the receipts. I got evidence. I've been there. Here's evidence. Stop thinking and look at the evidence. That is how they work. I saw this as a sales engineer. I saw this as a competitive intelligence analyst. I saw how some salespeople, and I despise this tactic, probably because it works. You just talk and you talk and you talk and you talk. You never give people a moment to get a word in. You just keep talking. You talk people until they're delirious, and they'll say yes to anything. You don't want people to think, and then you have a few other people come in the room, give you the illusion of consensus, and you win every argument. And then you use words and topics, a few keywords that people just don't understand, and you keep talking so fast that they don't even know that you just hit them with things that they obviously would never be able to understand, and you just keep assaulting them with evidence and receipts. Meanwhile, I'm telling you, there's way more to doing research than just getting evidence. Evidence is no replacement for critical thinking. And oddly enough, I'm the person telling you, don't let evidence and evidence alone tell you what to think. Use your critical thinking skills. Meanwhile, I'm the one with an archive. I'm the only one with a massive, well-organized archive of tens of thousands of assets that I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and really millions of dollars if you want to include the labor that I've dedicated to it over the last 7+ years. I have more evidence than anyone, and I'm the one person who's telling you, don't let evidence alone tell you what to think or tell you what to feel. Of course, evidence is necessary, but evidence and evidence alone doesn't let you solve every problem. In fact, so my thank you to Daxton Brown. I don't know who you are. If you're a bad actor, you got me fooled, but I'm going to show the videos here. We're going to do a little bit of a watch party here and do pauses along the way. Of course, Armenia is a big part of this as well. Remember, Moderna was founded with Armenia money. No, Moderna was founded with Naubar Afeyan, who goes all the way back to pre-9/11. He has a Winberg connection as well. Other people have talked about this. The technologies related to whatever they were planning to roll out and use the United States military for pre-9/11 again. And who was the head of the Carnegie Institute? It was Vartan Gregorian, George Clooney, the rest of the Hollywood actors, everyone involved at the Carnegie Institute. The previous director before then was Dr. David Hamburger, who was really the inspiration and the creator of the ballistic nuclear missile intercontinental whatever treaty that the United States worked on with Russia, and in many ways is the founding father of the DTRI, the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, which is such a big part of the COVID-19 story that no one likes to talk about, including Robert Malone in particular. Robert Malone is the little bitch boy of Jayanta Bhattacharya, as we know, or maybe it's the other way around. I don't know. I don't want to think about it. It's just disgusting, awful stuff. But the United States of America is under assault. We need to call it out. I don't blame other countries for taking advantage of the opportunities which are presented to them by a weak United States of America. It's not personal. It's not racial. I just want my own country to stand up for itself. If you are on stage right now, traveling the world, getting money to lie about the opioid epidemic in the United States of America, you are a traitor of the worst kind. You are worse than any traitor that George Washington took out into the woods and said, adios, senor. Let's watch some TV. And by the way, Daxton Brown does have a book available on Amazon. I've only discovered his work yesterday. He speaks with a soft voice, so I'm going to have to do some audio adjustments so you can hear him. I will break regularly to describe what we are seeing and put things into context as necessary. This one here is called Harry Reid, City Center Donor Bribe.
MGM Gregorian City Center Quid Quo Pro. The recession that began in 2008 was especially hard on Nevada and Las Vegas, with 13% unemployment and accurate predictions that no new major casino properties would be built for 10 years. For this reason, the completion of MGM's City Center complex, thrown into doubt by the collapse of its Dubai partner and a potential default on $1.2 billion in finishing loans.
Dubai, keep in mind, India's largest trading partner is the UAE, United Arab Emirates. So when you see money from Dubai, the majority of the population in the UAE, or Dubai at least, is Indian. So you hear Dubai, you think Muslim, you think Islam. You should be thinking India.
Spurred Harry Reid to action. Reid personally phoned bank CEOs, supposedly to attempt to save an estimated 40,000 jobs. A darker interpretation is that Reid squeezed banks to bail out his longtime friend and major donor, Kirk Kerkorian, in a quid quo pro that had nothing to do with the well-being of Nevadans.
Kirk Kerkorian, let's read a quick bio on Kirk Kerkorian here. Kirk Kerkorian, again, Armenian, just like Vartan Grigorian, just like a Moderna founder, now Baratheon. I'm the only channel on the internet, by the way. I'm the only channel on the internet that has openly said the name of the Moderna CEO. Do you realize that? I got to go full screen for that. I am the only channel on the internet in this research realm, not talking about like mainstream or Wall Street Journal. I'm the only channel that has ever said the name of the CEO of Moderna. How many hundreds, if not thousands of channels out there are saying all kinds of stories about what Moderna is or isn't, or intent or depopulation or transhumanism or whatever? Not one has ever said the name of the CEO. It's Noubar Afeyan, Afeyan, Noubar is the first name. Good friends with George Clooney, by the way. That's kind of a strange thing. It's almost as if they're paid to get all the eyeballs on Israel and nobody to realize India and India allies. Just saying. How's that for a starter? Kirk Kerkorian, he was born in 1917 and died in 2015. American businessman, investor, and philanthropist. He was president of Tracinda Corporation, his private holding company in Beverly Hills, California. Kerkorian was one of the most important figures in shaping Las Vegas, and with architect Martin Stern Jr., is described as the father of the mega resort. Kind of a big deal, I would say. He built the world's largest hotel in Las Vegas 3 times, the International in 1969, the original MGM Grand in 1973, and the current MGM Grand in 1993. He purchased the Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer movie studio in 1969. Kerkorian was born to Armenian immigrants, provided over $1 billion in charity in Armenia through his Lindsay Foundation. Given the year he died, I can't be certain. He would have worked a lot with the Moderna founder. Of course, Moderna technically didn't start until 2015 or so. 1998 earthquake, Armenia. He also provided money to ensure that a film based on the history of the Armenian genocide would be made. A lot of talk about the Armenian genocide. And he won all kinds of other awards. Onset of World War II, not wanting to join the infantry, Kerkorian learned to fly at the Happy Bottom Riding Club in the Mojave Desert, adjacent to the U.S. Army Air Corps Muroc Field, now Edwards Air Force Base, in exchange for flying lessons from pioneer aviator Pancho Barnes. There's a lot written here. It's a really long page. He did make some money in Transamerica Corporation, airlines, etc. You can read this at your own pace, but you'll see that there was a lawyer he worked for. I think his name was Bill Miller, who was the father of Judith Miller, who wrote the most important book in the world to understanding 9/11. Judith Miller is a giant with respect to the last 50 years of history of reporting at the New York Times. Judith Miller is a giant. And sure enough, her dad was a big part of whatever this mafia, money laundering, democratic machine was in Nevada. So let us go back to the show here.
Reid became acquainted with Kerkorian as an attorney representing the businessman's brother, Nish Kerkorian, in the 1960s and 70s. In many ways, Kirk Kerkorian made Harry Reid. MGM Mirage chairman and chief executive...
Kirk Kerkorian made Harry Reid. That's a big deal. That's a big statement. If that's true, that means that Armenia and mafia made Harry Reid. And if Armenia has been tight with India for hundreds and hundreds of years. Why hasn't anyone said this? It doesn't matter that Harry Reid, then his security advisor, is Richard Verma, another name that no one seems to mention. It's almost as if most citizen journalists are paid to never mention this. And why is that such a crazy thing to say if India has vast quantities of money more than Israel?
Officer Jim Murin was featured on Harry Reid's campaign ads of 2010, saying Harry called all the banks to save the construction of the city center resort.
My darkest days in my professional career were this year, and it was all about City Center.
The nation's biggest construction project, 10,000 construction workers, 12,000 permanent jobs. And when it looked like City Center was going to shut down, Harry Reid stepped up.
That man called every CEO of every bank that I know and said, look, this is important to my state. Get it done. Now we're going to open up City Center in December. We're going to employ over 12,000 people. They would not have jobs today if it not for Senator Reid.
As Senate leader, Harry Reid's working to get our economy back on track, passing clean energy tax credits that will create 41,000 Nevada jobs, over $100 million to keep Nevada police on the beat and teachers in the classroom, and saving City Center.
The climate scam. And oh, by the way, as someone who enjoys the winter and enjoys snow blowing, I think there has been a lot less snow lately. There are dimensions to the climate scam that most people are not factoring in. Even though renewables are so expensive, why does there seem to be no limit on how much money can be found for renewables? Why is there so much effort to defer energy usage to the future? Maybe because one, they want to save the energy for when they need it to power the computers in the future for the artificial intelligence related to the Human Genome Project. That would make a lot of sense. Another thing is that when all of this renewable energy excess is made and sent to the grid, it can then be used for uranium enrichment. Oh, that's right. Nevada is also one of the key spots in the world where they've been in constant debate about the usage of old mines for the storage of spent uranium, which is still 96, 97, 98% of its potential energy is still there. It's just spent. It's spent a little bit, and then they put it into an easy-to-access place for the future, almost as if they're going to be using it in the future for small nuclear reactors. And that would be a weird thing because Harry Reid is involved in that. And Harry Reid and Richard Verma were also the key names on India's nuclear deal.
There's no one else that could have done that.
Some said I shouldn't have pushed so hard, but with 20,000 jobs at stake, I'd do it all over again.
Harry Reid, determination that makes a difference.
I'm Harry Reid, and I approve this message.
If Murin was correct and Reid's efforts single-handedly saved City Center, both he and Reid are essentially caught in a catch-22 of admitting corruption. Other than the culinary union, Nevada citizens were never endeared to Harry Reid, so funding by the MGM and Kirk was critical to his political and personal financial survival. As Senate Majority Leader, Reid would have had inordinate influence in pressuring banks for loans, given the huge amount of bailout money then being provided in late 2008 by the TARP funds, in itself a form of fraud. An even more serious concern is that the MGM isn't a normal business, but a gaming enterprise. As a former gaming commissioner, Harry Reid surely should have known that by soliciting funds for MGM and City Center, he became an active partner in a gaming enterprise. The surprisingly untouched question is whether Reid fell under gaming laws requiring the divulging of personal relationships, especially if those personal relationships included having been a lifelong lawyer for the Kirkorians. Mobsters like the Kansas City Sevilla crime family went to jail for similar influence, just their skin wasn't cloaked as campaign donations. And why would Reid go out of his way for this one City Center property, especially considering the large 50% ownership interest of Dubai World?
Yeah, there's an insight that I have here that this Daxton Brown doesn't share. And I don't think Daxton Brown got there yet. Keep in mind, it took me a long time to get to where I am right now, too.
Many other major multi-million and billion-dollar Las Vegas.
He highlights how all of these other investors went belly up, but the Dubai investors didn't.
Projects like Echelon and Fontainebleau also went belly up in 2009. So why didn't Reid move mountains to protect these projects with insider loans? Especially since Reid's calls could be viewed as an illegal attempt to shake
Isn't that
banks
interesting?
down.
It just all falls into
Moreover,
place.
MGM's half-partner in City Center, Dubai World, was also then in a state of financial collapse, purportedly in the neighborhood of $60 billion. Dubai World, the investment arm of the Persian Gulf Emirate, invested almost $6 billion into MGM Mirage in August 2007.
And if that's true, that means that India is playing with way more money than most people give them credit for.
To acquire 50% of the $8.5 billion City Center project and about 9.9% of MGM Mirage's common stock. So one could view Reid's efforts as being part of a bailout of Dubai at Americans' expense. But it gets worse. Reid theoretically needed a gaming license as a fundraiser for the MGM. This is especially important because one of the MGM's partners was unlicensable and linked to Chinese mob triads. MGM Mirage knowingly signed on an unfit partner as it tried to gain a foothold in Macau after Chinese officials denied it a license in the fast-growing gambling mecca. New Jersey's Division of Gaming Enforcement reported, quote, "From the beginning of its efforts to enter Macau, MGM pursued partnerships with persons that it knew were associated with those aspects of gaming in Macau most heavily penetrated by organized crime."
See, now this is the part where I'm not going to say this right because I'm still sorting this out as well. What we see here as being displayed is Harry Reid and insiders wanting to make a lot of money through money laundering and being selective about which casinos they approve or don't. There's a highlight that Dubai investors just crossed it out and think India were getting preferential treatment. And then there's this other tangent here about MGM wanting to make investments and have casinos in Macau, which is some weird territory in China. And then the Chinese investors. China has a mafia too, okay? Presumably they're all over the place. But instead of seeing it simply as this mafia and Harry Reid and Nevada insiders wanting to make money at every opportunity, instead, I encourage you to think of the United States right now as being a territory that's fought over between India and China. Think of India and China having a proxy war via the United States. Now, China would probably have won if it wasn't for Henry effing Kissinger convincing China to have one child per family for decades. China is now facing a demographic catastrophe. Now, China also is naturally not an imperialistic country. I heard someone the other day say that China has 10,000 years where they could have conquered the world, and they never really seem to want to, other than to expand for the purposes of trade and demand. They're not inherently imperialistic, but the British sure are. And whatever that culture is that sank in India definitely is imperialistic. So what we see here are gaming licenses being approved or not approved, because U.S. casinos wanting to get in Macau, and then, Chinese investors coming in. And while certainly there's elements of organized crime and pockets being lined and palms being greased all over the place, but there's an overarching story, I think, because I heard follow the money. And the bigger and bigger and bigger money is we are talking about a warfare between world powers, which goes back a long way. And these money laundering operations are necessary to fund and have political control inside the United States of America. I'm going to go out on a limb and say India is crushing it right now, because India has the National Institutes of Health Director of the United States of America. He's in collusion with all kinds of other individuals in the United States of America. Well, the vice president is married to an Indian woman. We have CBER within the FDA run by an Indian national. We have Richard Verma and all of his antics. We have the Dubai presence, their investments in Nevada. We have, 5, 6, 8 U.S. congresspersons right now born from India. We have Ro Khanna spearheading the Epstein thing. He was born in the United States by the skin of his teeth, telling Americans that they need to be upset about Jews, Israel, Zionism, pedophiles, and Epstein. Based upon these metrics, India is crushing it. There are no Chinese nationals in the United States government. I don't want there to be, by the way. However, if we are to constantly make all these statements that China is infiltrating the United States, I would expect to see an equal number approximately. And we don't. So through this window here of money laundering in Nevada and whatever's going on here, I see all kinds of other stuff. I see a proxy battle over the United States of America. The largest, most diverse population on the planet, a population that's not having as many babies as it used to, a nation that's full of potential energy. And of course, what do you think? China's just going to let India take it over? But India is. And all the mainstream media is squarely focused on Chinese infiltration. And in fact, it's an Indian national, Raja Krishnamurthy, who is a good old friend of Barack Obama, who's running the CCP subcommittee within the United States Congress. More evidence of just how gosh darn right I am on this. By the way, speaking of clean energy, one of the longtime friends of Harry Reid regarding clean energy concerns is John Podesta. And of course, John Podesta was at the 1997 White House meeting with Thomas Monath, with Jerome Hauer, with Craig Venter, with Joshua Lederberg, with Rosenberg, with, I can't even think of who else, regarding the concerns of biological weapons, a meeting which was well documented, and Judith Miller's book, Germs, which came out September 9th, 2001. Judith Miller, whose dad was a lawyer for Kirk, who was just mentioned as the main funder of Harry Reid. And it was just less than 12 months ago that John Podesta was taken to Armenia by Richard Verma, another name that nobody will mention because they're so caught up hyperventilating about Epstein and pedophiles and Israel. You are now watching what everyone else should be saying, and it shouldn't be up to me. I am the manifestation of the abject failure and the willingness of other citizen journalists to take money to lie about why people die, to facilitate murder with lies, and to sell out the United States of America. I am that person. I didn't sign up for it. It sought me out. And here I am. Let's keep on watching what thankfully Daxton Brown was able to bring together for us.
But it gets worse. Reid theoretically needed a gaming license as a fundraiser for the MGM. This is especially important because one of the MGM's partners was unlicensable and linked to Chinese mob triads. MGM Mirage knowingly signed on an unfit partner as it tried to gain a foothold in Macau after Chinese officials denied it a license in the fast-growing gambling mecca. New Jersey's Division of Gaming Enforcement reported, quote, "From the beginning of its efforts to enter Macau, MGM pursued partnerships with persons that it knew were associated with those aspects of gaming in Macau most heavily penetrated by organized crime," unquote. MGM Mirage's joint venture partner in Macau was Macau casino heiress Pansy Ho. She was considered an unsuitable person because of her tight business relationship with her father, Stanley Ho. Stanley Ho once held the casino monopoly in Macau and ran offshore gambling, drugs, and prostitution with numerous ties to organized crime. MGM's partnership with Pansy Ho eventually cratered their planned expansion at Borgata Hotel, Casino and Spa in Atlantic City. Before New Jersey reached any findings in its investigation into Ho's suitability, MGM pulled out, putting its 50% Borgata ownership into a fund controlled by a trustee. So Kirk was in dire straits in late 2008 and early 2009, having lost billions by buying Ford stock and because of the downturn in fortunes of the MGM in a faltering economy.
Let's not forget that Trump is a hotel builder. Trump had a lot of business in Atlantic City. There's a Trump building in Las Vegas. Let's not forget that Trump is in this. Let's not forget that there was so much focus on Trump wanting to build a hotel in Russia. I mean, he's a businessman, wants to build a hotel in Russia, fine. It's not that I support or criticize Trump's decision to want to build a hotel in Moscow. It's not that I'm surprised that anyone who wants to build a hotel in Moscow is going to have to participate in some dirty business. It's the fact that we all know that Trump wanted to build a hotel in Moscow, but we don't know any of this. Trump's hotel in Moscow, which never happened as far as I know, is known by everyone. But none of this has gotten out. None of this has gotten out. What, it's just some little account with 96 subscribers on YouTube, a video that was posted 3 years ago, 20 views on this? Are you kidding me? There's more information in here that's broken on Redacted and InfoWars combined in a week. Oh, I'm sorry. It's not about Jews in Israel.
The criminal backgrounds of partners Stanley Ho and Pansy Ho were also being exposed, so they no doubt were putting the screws to Kerkorian. Certainly Dubai World knew that it was in trouble well before its $60 billion crash in late 2009. Kerkorian could have lost it all. Thus, when Harry Reid bragged about saving City Center, was he most interested in saving 40,000 jobs for Nevadans or in saving the investment of his former client and friend, Kirk Kerkorian? Not only was the MGM and its affiliates Reid's largest donor past tense, but they are still funding his retirement parachute to the present, even after Kerkorian's death. MGM has long been a sponsor of the Clean Energy Summit, which we show has been corrupted by political payoffs to renewable energy companies.
Whoa. Go back a little bit. Just look at the names. John Podesta. The top name on the list right there was just with Richard Verma. You know, that ambassador to India, the person who did the legal work at the Winburn Center with Robert Malone in the year 2000 and 2001. The one who was the U.S. Air Force lawyer, probably new regular guy, who was brought into our orbit with Piper Stover. You know, the ambassador to India. You know, the one who was all over the Hillary Clinton emails that no one talks about. You know, the one that was the deputy secretary of state with Hillary Clinton. You know, the one that was talking to, Margaret Peggy Hamburg, future FDA director in 2008, and Tom Brokaw about 9/11. That video I just showed you, and was sitting next to autopilot Dov Zakheim in 2012, another video that nobody will ever talk about. Dov Zakheim and the rest of that crowd, again in the Judith Miller Gerbs book, Judith Miller's dad working with Kirk Kerkorian.
Show has been corrupted
and it
by
gets
political
better.
payoffs
This is just goes on.
Energy companies and a Reid piggy bank. But
I would need a year to archive all the stuff that's being dumped just in this show and that I can find on that channel.
MGM has also funded Reid's retirement in the form of a policy institute /slush fund being created at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas in partnership with former House Speaker John Boehner. Compensation is rumored to be substantial. Kirk Kerkorian died in 2016 at 98 years old. On Kerkorian's
these Armenians live a long time. They all live until their 90s or 100 years old.
passing, Senator Harry Reid of Nevada eulogized Kerkorian from the Senate floor.
Last night at 10:30, my friend Kirk Kerkorian died. What a wonderful human being. 98 years old. And when the history books are written, they'll say a lot about this good man.
I'm going to write a
I
baby.
had the good fortune as a young lawyer to meet him. I, Mr. President, didn't do any of his
This is Harry Reid speaking.
mergers and acquisitions
Kerkorian's
and
death.
all the stock stuff. I didn't do any of that. But when I met him, he didn't need that. When we first met, he was
Remember, Harry Reid's, if you look at Harry Reid's obituary, first person that's quoted is Richard Verma. Funny that no one mentions that name.
a businessman with an airline called Transnational Airlines. I kept in touch with him all these many years.
Because I want to get going with another one of these videos here. I want to go to the Daxton Brown channel, videos. This one, Harvey Whittemore bribes. Okay, this one was made 3 years ago. It's going to talk about Harvey Whittemore, who is a giant lawyer in Las Vegas, or I should say Nevada, and Whittemore and how much he worked with Harry Reid. Now, Harvey Whittemore is, as this video would describe, I'm going to do a little bit of a spoiler here, and Harvey Whittemore, quite wealthy, very powerful lawyer, one of the most powerful lawyers in Nevada. And the name should ring a bell because Harvey Whittemore gave money to create a new institute at the University of Nevada, Reno, called the Whittemore Peterson Institute. Peterson is the name of a doctor who found or diagnosed cases of chronic fatigue near Lake Tahoe in a small area called Incline Village back in the early 1980s. And that was understood to be a large outbreak of chronic disease or chronic fatigue syndrome, CFS. And many people were like, wow, how is this yuppie flu, this chronic fatigue starting? And there was a big case of it that was focused out in there. And this Dr. Peterson became an advocate for providing money and research into chronic fatigue. Now, the Whittemore family came along in Nevada and teamed up with Dr. Peterson because Annette Whittemore, the wife of Harvey Whittemore, who the video is going to talk about, they had a child who was diagnosed with having chronic fatigue. So they said, hey, here's some money. Here's a few tens of millions of dollars to create your chronic fatigue institute. The institute was created in 2008 or 10, although there was momentum beforehand, right? Now, the main researcher for this stuff was a named Dareen Ablashi, an Indian national, okay, who started doing his work out in California, and then they carried that work for whatever reason. The institute's inspiration came out of California, but the research came into this institute in Reno, and on the day it was created, they made their chief scientist Judy Mikovits. Judy Mikovits, the Robert Malone friend. Judy Mikovits of HIV. Judy Mikovits of RFK Jr. and Children's Health Defense. Judy Mikovits' money was at the Harvey Whittemore, the Whittemore Peterson Institute. So Judy Mikovits is in this story too. Her big conspiracy about being outed as a bad scientist and bad research regarding chronic fatigue and XMRV, xenotropic maurine retroviruses, or whatever the hell it is the institute that was funded by Harvey Whittemore of Harry Reid, Kirk Kerkorian money in Nevada. Research which came out of another Indian national in California, Dareen Ablashi. You can find pages about this stuff on Wikipedia because Wikipedia has a lot of valuable stuff in it. Don't let anyone else tell you otherwise. You just need to know how to use Wikipedia. Wikipedia lies by omission. Wikipedia can't say things that are false. They can get crossed out. So, the Whittemore Peterson Institute, really interesting because Annette Whittemore herself, this is where it gets really bizarre, okay? Annette Whittemore herself is one of the children of the baby god in Nevada. There is a doctor in Nevada who used his own sperm for the purposes of in vitro fertilization for fertility treatments. There's a movie called Baby God. You can go to my shared movies, my films. You can see it, okay? Baby God. We don't know how many children were fathered by the baby god. It could be several hundred. It could be thousands. The baby god family tree is a unique opportunity to study heredity and genomics. And Annette Whittemore never shared this publicly, meaning that they funded a research institute about chronic fatigue where behind the scenes, the main person that they started the institute for is a granddaughter of the baby god who used his own sperm for hundreds, if not thousands, of babies. Again, and we are back in Nevada and back with Harry Reid with a story that nobody will talk about because they are paid to get you to think about Epstein, pedophiles, Jews, and the hoax of Zionism. Let's watch this next video together. This one was released 3 years ago. It's called Harvey Whittemore Bribes.
Harvey Whittemore Bribery. Jack Abramoff, Dario Herrera, and
Jack
Aaron Kenny
Abramoff
are three political friends of Harry Reid who did jail time for bribery, but they weren't the only ones. Perhaps the clearest example is Harvey Whittemore, who just finished 2 years jail time in 2016 for illegal bundling of over $150,000 in campaign donations to Reid. Of course, that amount doesn't include what passed under the table for sweetheart political payoffs to make that illegal campaign investment worthwhile. Whittemore was one of the three most powerful lobbyists in Nevada, only rivaled by Reid friends Sig Rogich and Billy Vasiliadis. Whittemore got started as a lobbyist in 1983 at age 26, working for former Nevada Governor Grant Sawyer's firm, where Whittemore was later a senior partner. By the 90s, he was a fixture in Carson City, the Nevada capital, whining and dining legislators on behalf of his gaming and tobacco clients, whipping for votes, even writing legislation. Whittemore was so omnipresent on the floor of the State House that glass barriers placed between legislators and the public seating gallery came to be known as Harvey's Walls. While Whittemore's campaign bundling for Reid is what got him jailed, it was his Coyote Springs development where the real graft occurred, and shows how Harry Reid worked hand in hand on land developments to make millions for cozy friends. In this case, he was not just a developer friend, but lawyer, developer, lobbyist Harvey Whittemore. Whittemore's law firm, Lionel Sawyer Collins, at times employed all four of Reid's sons, Roy, Leaf, Josh, and Key. The Whittemore-Reid partnership became a family affair, with Whittemore at one time or another employing all four of Reid's sons. In 2001, Roy Reid even took a lobbying job at Whittemore's firm while he was chairman of Nevada's Democratic Party. Whittemore's longtime personal lawyer on the Coyote Springs deal? None other than Leaf Reid, Harry's eldest. Whittemore had been working since at least 2000 on his Coyote Springs golf and housing development, an hour northeast of Las Vegas. Harvey's close relationship with Senator Harry Reid helped tremendously in Whittemore's ability to sidestep and change policies and regulations standing in the way of his gigantic project. With Senator Reid's help, Whittemore removed formidable obstacles to the Coyote Springs project. This included moving 13,000 acres designated as a sanctuary for the desert tortoise out of the center of the Coyote Springs land to the north and eastern edges of the project, freeing up development, next to impossible when dealing with the Federal Endangered Species Act. Changing the land designation is something that could only be done by someone near the stature of then Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid. The Coyote Springs project also required special consideration for transmission line corridors, and Reid again helped. According to the Los Angeles Times, as the hurdles were removed, Reid received tens of thousands of dollars in campaign contributions from Whittemore. Yet Harry Reid's office said that Harvey Whittemore was treated no differently than any other developer. Just as interesting as Whittemore's bribes was who was chosen to defend him. Dominic Gentile is another of Reid's lawyer friends who have devoted their lives to defending mobsters in the porn trade. Among other accomplishments, Gentile became the owner of the Palomino Club nude bar after the owner, a client, defaulted on some loans. In 2009, Reid brought Gentile in to press spurious fraud charges against Lieutenant Governor Brian Krolicki at the behest of Nevada Attorney General Catherine Cortez Masto, who later became senator. But that is another story. In 2007, around the time the economy and Coyote Springs went south, prosecutors say Whittemore promised to bundle $150,000 for Reid. When he couldn't deliver, he reached into his own pockets to make up the difference. And to get around contribution limits, he used employees as fences, reimbursing them for donations made in their names. This was a clear campaign finance violation, but the real crime was the earlier years of incestuous dealings between Whittemore and the entire Reid family. Reid told a Nevada news show before the jury on campaign bundling reached its verdict, quote, "This trial would determine whether or not Whittemore followed the law. It won't change my impression of Harvey Whittemore or his wife, Annette. I think they are wonderful people. I appreciate the Whittemore family."
Annette Whittemore hired Judy Mikovits. Annette Whittemore hired Judy Mikovits. One more time, Annette Whittemore hired Judy Mikovits.
Over the years, they have helped me, and I appreciate it very, very much.
How many people told me, you have to trust Judy Mikovits because she gives great hugs? She's a victim. Now, here's another good one. This one is this is Harry Reid documentary, Senator Menendez bribes. 12 views. What a national tragedy.
Reid Menendez bribe conduit. In a trial in September of 2017, a 22-count indictment charged that from 2006 to 2013, United States Senator Robert Menendez of New Jersey solicited and accepted numerous gifts from his friend Dr. Solomon Melgen, a Florida-based ophthalmologist. In exchange, Senator Menendez used the power of his office to try to influence an enforcement action against Dr. Melgen by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and to encourage the State Department and the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol to intervene on Dr. Melgen's behalf in a multi-million-dollar contract dispute with the Dominican Republic. In 2009, CMS found Dr. Melgen had overbilled Medicare for $8.9 million from 2007 to 2008 by engaging in a prohibited practice known as multidosing. Medicare policy required that each patient receiving the drug Lucentis be treated using a separate vial, but Dr. Melgen routinely used the extra solution from a single vial, so-called overfill, to treat multiple patients. You need one vial for each eye, and you can't use leftover drug because of infection risk. Because he was reimbursed as if he used a separate vial for each patient, Dr. Melgen was paid for more vials of drug than he actually used. As Senator Menendez
I'm just letting it go because this is just an all-out assault as far as things which people just don't talk about but should all know because they're all hyperventilating about Epstein victims. By the way, you do know that most of the Epstein child victims right now are almost 50 years old, right? They are crying about, we need truth for the Epstein child victims. Some of them are almost 50. While children today have to resort to prostitution due to drug addiction. Meaning, if you are someone that right now is not constantly using your platform, your opportunity to tweet, your opportunity to get on a podcast to remind people of children that are being killed right now or having to resort to prostitution because of the epidemic of addiction and fatal drug overdoses, you are more responsible than Epstein ever was for what's happening to the children of the United States of America. I'm just saying that. I'm just saying. You have no right to say that you care about children at all because you want to talk about Epstein all day. Go back a minute here.
More vials of drug than he actually used. As Senator Menendez, longtime mega donor, Solomon Melgen bribed Menendez with underage girls and vacations in the Dominican Republic as well as campaign funds. Senator Menendez's staff worked with Dr. Melgen's lobbyist on the CMS dispute and eventually arranged for Menendez to speak with Jonathan Blum, then acting principal deputy administrator and director of CMS. An official from the United States Department of Health and Human Services wrote Mr. Blum, quote, "We have a bit of a situation with Senator Menendez, who is advocating on behalf of a physician
Nancy
friend
Pelosi.
of his in Florida," unquote. Almost 3 years later, in June 2012, Senator Menendez discussed multidosing with Marilyn Tavenner, the then acting administrator of CMS, who stated CMS would not alter its position on multidosing. Senator Menendez threatened to raise the issue of multidosing directly with Kathleen Sebelius, then Director of Health and Human Services.
Current Director of, she's basically is in the role that RFK Jr. is in right now.
So who does Menendez go to a week later to try to get Melgen off the hook but Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, who sets up a meeting with HHS Director Sebelius to try and force them to back off, but not before Dr. Melgen earmarked $600,000 in contributions to be spent in New Jersey, helping on the senator's re-election. That $600,000 was then washed through the Senate Majority PAC to benefit Menendez, a clear quid pro quo bribe. Now, what is not generally known is that Senate Majority PAC is Harry Reid's wholly owned creation, run exclusively by his former aides Rebecca Joly and Susan McHugh. Moreover, the Melgen money was funneled through Reid aide Jake Perry, who Reid called a close friend and advisor. In a statement, Stephanie Potter, executive director of Senate Majority PAC, said the fundraiser no longer worked for the group. Mr. Menendez was fully aware that the contributions were intended as a favor to him, Within days of the first check, the Senate began pressing federal officials to intervene in the $8.9 million Medicare billing dispute with Dr. Melgen. The scheduler for Majority Leader of the Senate, Harry Reid, arranged a meeting among Senator Reid, Senator Menendez, and Secretary Sebelius. Senator Menendez told his staff that he did not want to tell Dr. Melgen about the arrangement, quote, so that I don't raise expectations just in case it falls apart, unquote. At the meeting with Secretary Sebelius and Senator Reid, Senator Menendez advocated on behalf of Dr. Melgen's position in the Medicare billing dispute,
You should view this as an
focusing on his
archiving
specific case and asserting unfair
task right now.
treatment of it. Senator Reid later told the FBI that Dr. Melgen's name probably came up during the meeting because his, quote, individual situation was clearly the purpose of the meeting and they would have otherwise been speaking in a vacuum, unquote. Secretary Sebelius told Senator Menendez that because Dr. Melgen's case was in the administrative appeals process, she had no power to influence the matter. Majority Leader Reid then reached out to Obama White House Deputy Chief of Staff Alyssa Mende Mastro Monaco, informing her that Menendez was upset about how a Florida ophthalmologist was being treated by CMS and asking that she call the agency.
I'm going to start the conspiracy that Obama is part Indian. I've seen pictures of him next to Richard Verma, and I think that the entire conspiracy about Obama's father is I think it's possibly a misdirection. I think that's what Obama's primary location of visit and international relationship that he focused on was India.
Mastro Monaco demurred after recognizing the matter involved a dispute between a single doctor and an administrative agency, according to prosecutors.
Which, if true, means there's still an opportunity to have a first black American president.
So what we do know for certain is the Menendez bribe fits well within the pattern displayed by Harry Reid of shaking down donors for donations in exchange for support of illegal activities. Apparently, the Department of Justice asks us to believe Reid never asked for any personal favors from Menendez,
Eric
despite
Holder.
the large sums
Boy.
of money involved, and despite a history of taking bribes stretching back 45 years. As interesting as Reid's own involvement was who turned up to testify at Menendez's trial. Harry Reid ended up not testifying, either because it would have opened him up to jeopardy for bribe influence or because the Department of Justice had cut a deal for his testimony. Instead, showing up on Menendez's behalf was
Jeffries.
Senators Cory Booker and Lindsey Graham, part of the good
that's
old
Booker.
boys
I got
Senators
Booker
Club.
and Jeffries mixed up, sorry.
However, the really interesting testimonial that did not happen was that of Mark Elias. Elias is lawyer to Senator Harry Reid, to the DNC Democratic National Committee, and to the Senate Majority PAC, and is a partner of Perkins Coie, the powerful Washington law firm.
Oh, boy.
It was Mark
Glenn
Elias who
Simpson.
signed off on funding
Fusion
GPS to fund the notorious Steele memo alleging candidate Trump colluded with Russia. In short,
Of course. Of course.
the Menendez trial is just a sideshow to the real circus of bribes and influence peddling of Reid and Perkins Coie.
Oh, beautiful. Again, more stuff from the Hillary Clinton emails. You get one side of it, but you'll never get anything related to Reid or Richard Verma. Of course not. Of course not. It's all selective. Let's see. Let's look another one here. There is the full tilt poker bribes. There's the documentary intro. Bagman J. Brown. What's another good one here to watch? Wow, Harry Reid documentary, Jewel Unlimited. Holy cow! Holy cow! Didn't we have a friend of ours work at Jewel?
Jewel Unlimited Russian technology transfer scam. In 2011, John Podesta joined the board of a very small energy company called Jewel Energy, based out of Massachusetts. The only way he could be considered for this position is through his political clout in combination with Harry Reid's clean energy project,
John
his ties
Podesta.
to Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Al Gore, and Hillary Clinton. Jewel Unlimited placed a big bet hiring Democratic insider John Podesta to its board, but it appeared to have been doomed when former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton lost the 2016 election for president. Senior company executives admitted the prospects for the renewable energy biofuels company evaporated with Hillary Clinton's loss. Former Jewel CEO Brian Baines told Biofuels Digest, quote, "We had a lot of prospects last year, but those new investor prospects walked away, particularly post-election," unquote. That would seem to fill the definition of pay-to-play government corruption. About 2 months after Podesta joins the board of Juul, a Russian entity called Rosnano put 1 billion rubles, which is about $35 million, into John Podesta's company. Podesta's close association with Russian business leaders started in 2011, when he agreed to join the boards of 3 intertwined companies.
Let's not forget, John Podesta has been works a lot with Richard Verma. Richard Verma, who no one mentions. Richard Verma, Winber Lab. Richard Verma, Hillary Clinton Deputy Secretary of State. Richard Verma, Ambassador to India. United States Ambassador to India. Richard Verma, Chief Strategist, at least global strategist for Harry Reid. Richard Verma, who then went on to lead the economic recovery of Ukraine. Biden appointed Richard Verma to head economic recovery of Ukraine for the United States State Department. And no one talks about it. Oh, that's right, because India is also a huge financial supporter of Ukraine. The president of Ukraine, or prime minister, and I apologize, the other day I said Zelenko, who was the doctor, I meant Zelensky. Before Zelensky meets with Putin, does he call the president of the United States, or does he call Prime Minister Modi and Shashi Tharoor in India? He calls Modi and Tharoor in India before meeting with Putin. He doesn't call Trump, he calls India. Who's calling the shots here? Who has the influence here? Is it Jeffrey Epstein, pedos, and Israel? No.
Boston-based Juul Unlimited, Rotterdam-based Juul Global Holdings, and Juul Global Stichting, the company's controlling interest. Stichting was based in The Hague. That type of foreign investment requires financial disclosures every year. In his financial disclosure form in 2013, John Podesta failed to disclose 75,000 shares of stock that he had in Juul Energy. The Kremlin-backed $35 million investment given to Juul after Podesta's board appointment represented over 30% of Juul's outside financing. Podesta also failed to disclose he was on one of the 3 corporate boards, part of a very complex ownership structure. He disclosed he is on the board of the company in Massachusetts and the one in the Netherlands, but failed to disclose he was also on the executive board of the holding company. Rosnano USA, Inc. is a Kremlin-owned venture capital firm nicknamed Putin's Child. Dmitry Akhanov, the president and CEO of Rosnano USA, oversaw the Russian government's investment in Juul and sat on its board, along with 2 other Russians with ties to the Kremlin. The 2 other Juul Unlimited board members were Ruben Vardanyan, who Putin appointed to a Russian economic modernization council.
Oh my God! I know who that is. Let's look up photos here. Nubar Afeyan, the Armenian founder of Moderna. Afeyan and the previous, his good friend and the longtime director of the Carnegie Institute, Vartan Gregorian. Yeah, there we go. There he is. It's the guy on the screen. So, starting from the left, this is Nubar Afeyan. He's the CEO, founder, largest shareholder in Moderna. Everyone loves to talk about Moderna, but no one knows who owns Moderna. Armenia owns Moderna. Oh, fun fact. Armenia is one of the only countries that wouldn't allow its citizens to use Moderna's mRNA vaccine. That's true fact. There's George Clooney. When I lose weight, I look a lot like George Clooney, people have said. That's true. Right now, I need to lose some weight. This is the guy that's on the screen working with Harry Reid and Putin, and that's Vartan Gregorian. Now, Vartan Gregorian was the longtime president of the Carnegie Institute. He was the president of the Carnegie Institute when this photo was taken with George Soros and Bill Gates Sr. and Tom Brokaw and Judy Woodruff and the people who founded HIV research, and Ted Turner, and Anthony Fauci, and so on and so forth, and Parsons, etc., etc. But also, the person that was the president of the Carnegie Institute before Vartan Gregorian, who died a few years ago, Gregorian here on the far right, was David Hamburg. one of the 2 or 3 best longtime friends of Joshua Lederberg, also father of Peggy Margaret Hamburg, who was the director of the FDA for 8 years under President Obama and who made EUA possible through legislation that she was responsible for passing, while spearheading initiatives for personalized medicine. It's like my show is basically just everything that everyone else should have spoken about while they were too busy assaulting your ears and your eyes with information, worthless information about Jeffrey Epstein and Israel and Jews and Zionism. Because the money is out there to get people to focus on what doesn't matter. Oh, that's right. 2 weeks ago, India just made a huge arms deal with Armenia. They were selling Armenia fighter jets. So Armenia citizens can now participate in protecting against any Pakistani jets which happen to wander over into that area. Now, Armenia and Pakistan don't border each other. I don't know how this all works out, but for some reason, Pakistan is pissed, and Richard Verma's given a thumbs up about it. This guy here, again, second from the right, it's another weird, crazy Armenian name. I can't keep them all straight, but this was completely unexpected. Here he is involved with these energy deals and Harry Reid and John Podesta, stuff that no one else talks about. I am not capable of explaining all of this stuff to you, all these details. In fact, you don't need to know all of these details. What you should right now, though, I suggest to you, is feel angry. You should feel as though other people have done a disservice to you by not already explaining at least some of these things to you. Instead, they have been paid to take the truth and cut out little holes on it and then assault you with information from those small little pieces and then suggest that you should stop thinking because they have so many gosh darn receipts.
And Anatoly Chubais,
We could go back a little bit here.
Along with 2 other Russians, oversaw the Russian government's investment in Juul and sat on its board, along with 2 other Russians with ties to the Kremlin. The 2 other Juul Unlimited board members were Ruben Vardanyan, who Putin appointed to a Russian Economic Modernization Council, and Anatoly Chubais, a close personal friend of former President Bill Clinton and economic advisor to former Russian President Boris Yeltsin. Chubais allegedly made millions in the sell-off and privatization of Russia's state-owned industries. Rosnano's CEO Akhanov agreed that Clinton...
Yeltsin worked a lot with David Hamburg, who is basically the founding father of the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, an agency that is really more State Department but gets to run within the United States military, and the head of the United States military has minimal oversight of because of their State Department connections, because out of concerns of weapons of mass destruction. By the way, there's a whole chapter or 2 in the Judith Miller-Germs book about the Defense Threat Reduction Agency. And the first person that was appointed to be the director, Andy Weber, whose at first wife became an executive secretary for Hillary Clinton. Stuff that nobody talks about because they're paid to get you to think only about Israel and Jews and Epstein.
Company, quote, we lined up investors who were willing to buy the bonds, but after the elections, with some statements from the new administration regarding potential uncertainty, the future support of biofuels was stopped. The company was not able to do the deal, and it was one of the reasons why the company was closed. The reason Juul Unlimited is more than just an everyday business deal is that its technology, producing hydrocarbon biofuels by photosynthetic bacteria, is high-tech and can be considered strategic information. Lucia Ziobro, the special agent in charge at the FBI's Boston field office, issued an extraordinary warning in 2014 about Russian investors to startups like Juul. Quote, the FBI believes the true motives of the Russian partners, who are often funded by their government, is to gain access to classified, sensitive, and emerging technology from the companies, unquote, she wrote in a Boston Globe op-ed. Many companies, including Shell Oil, have pursued biofuel creation using photosynthetic algae, The problem with the algae technique is that it requires the drying and processing of massive tonnages of algae. The Joule Unlimited process skips those problems, using bacteria to directly excrete usable hydrocarbons. Joule Unlimited, formerly Joule Biotechnologies, was a producer of alternative energy technologies based in Bedford, Massachusetts, and started by MIT professors. The company developed a process to generate hydrocarbon-based fuels by combining non-freshwater nutrients, cyanobacteria, carbon dioxide, and sunlight. The company planned to break ground in 2011 on a facility to produce more than 20,000 gallons of fuel per acre per year.
Full transparency, I think it's great that we have people that are searching for new ways to create fuels. Which way can we get the most amount of energy? Okay, with the least amount of disruption of the Earth's surface, of the Earth's soil. This is smart, but the way it's funded, though, and I don't think that people who are working in these industries really know this, is that it's not because there's just a group of people that just really want to protect the Earth. Okay, it's about that they will pour whatever money, they will impoverish whatever number of people are necessary in order to defer use of fuels that are available on Earth as much as possible for computing in the future. I believe powering the AI of the future is an enormous part of the concerns that they talk about. You can have all the gene therapy and all the data collection and all the servers that you want. Someday, all that data needs to be crunched by computers, and it's going to require more energy than all the people on the planet are currently are using combined. Where are you going to get all that energy? Especially if right now the demographics suggest that world population is going to be going down in the future. How are we going to get more power in the future if we have less people around to create energy? So the beauty of the climate scam, if you want to call it that, okay, climate is changing, I believe, but the climate scam is that it provides reasons to defer usage of materials such as this and of energy until the future. It's also a great way to be able to, encourage people to make enriched uranium. Enriching uranium, of course, requires a ton of energy. You use 2 or 3% of it. You say it's spent, and then you have to find a cave somewhere and put it in. When Nevada is one of the best places for this. Now, there's a lot of environmentalists in Nevada that have fought against using Nevada as a place for storage of spent uranium fuels. Having a very Hollywood interpretation of what spent uranium is. It's not really dangerous. It's a little bit warm. It's not really an environmental threat. They just make a ton of money to be able to store something that is worth a ton of money to power computers for the future. And Nevada has a role in this, and I would not be surprised because of the level of classification of the United States Department of Energy if there's way more energy that's been vaulted in Nevada than anyone really knows about. It would make a lot of sense. If something like that is going on. Let's see here. Maybe one more, or it's 5 o'clock. I'm gonna squeeze one more video in, and you don't need to know all these videos or all these names. Again, this is just about what an absolute gold mine it's been to be disconnected from all the other noise. I kept thinking that maybe some other researchers or citizen journalists just had it wrong. Maybe we're missing a few data points. I didn't realize that they were all on the take, one way or another, to never mention the elephant in the room. And once I saw that, the less I was encouraged to, I just subjected myself to looking at the receipts and following their evidence, this stuff just starts to fall into place rapidly. And because I'm using my critical thinking skills, I'm not evidence, receipts. I'm just think about this stuff. Don't let evidence clog up your brain to the point where you can't think. Don't ignore evidence, but don't allow other people to prevent you from thinking by overloading you with evidence. You don't need to think much to go, hey, why are there so many people born in India running the United States government? And they're ignoring the opioid epidemic. And they're using deaths from opioids to say life expectancy went down from a deadly novel virus or something else. They're misleading people. They are participating in murder while saying, worry about China. It's right there. I don't need to listen to another several hundred hours of other podcasters yelling at me to understand what's right in front of me. Anyways, I'm going to probably archive the rest of these videos. I'm going to try to reach out to this person if they're still alive at all. If not, thank you for whoever posted the videos. I'm glad someone did it. I can't believe how much stuff is just coming together so rapidly. So thank you guys for listening. This is a heavy episode. No going back right now. There's no going back. And in fact, what should happen right now is a bunch of people should circle around and go, holy crap, that's the way to go, and be taking this and then integrating it in with what they've done and moving forward. I fear that's not going to happen. I want to watch channels where people are still fighting, even if they lose. That's the way to go. That's the way I'm going to burn out. All right, guys, thank you. Take care. Love you much. HoustonTonic.live. God bless.